The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2021 webinar series. Today's presentation is Am I at Risk?, which is the second webinar in our Practical Cybersecurity for Your Business series. I'm Veronica Donahue from our COVID-19 support program, and I'll be your moderator today. Now, before we start, I want to point out the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. I want to call special attention to both the questions panel and the chat box. If you have any comments or questions during the webinar today, I'd like you to use those to communicate with us. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent out to all registrants shortly following the live event today. You can also visit our website at wyomingwomen.org and navigate to the Training tab to view all upcoming webinars and past webinar recordings. If you're watching this webinar live, a survey will launch shortly after we close the presentation. Please complete this survey as it provides us and our funding partners with valuable information. And as a reminder, all participants are muted to minimize background noise. So once again, if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please use the chat box or questions panel. Now, before I introduce Laura Baker from Cyber Wyoming, I want to give some quick information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center in case you're not familiar with us already. The Wyoming Women's Business Center is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enable and empower Wyoming entrepreneurs with a special emphasis on women who are economically or socially disadvantaged. And we do this through 4 distinct programs. The first is our business counseling and training program, which is always free. The second is our microfinance programs, which offer micro loans and individual development accounts. Third is the Artist Development Center we run in conjunction with our Works of Wyoming gift store in downtown Laramie. And lastly, we recently launched our COVID-19 support program in the early summer of 2020. This webinar is brought to you by the COVID-19 support program, and I want to call special attention to the list of services available to Wyoming business owners when they become clients. You can sign up by going to wyomingwomen.org or contact me directly for more information. My contact is at the bottom of the screen. Okay, now that we've gone through these opening slides, I am so happy to introduce our guest presenter, Laura Baker. Laura is the co-founder and executive director of Cyber Wyoming. I'll just turn controls over to her now, and you should see her screen pop up momentarily.
Thank you so much. Can you see my screen and can you hear me okay?
Yep, I see your screen.
Okay.
It sounds good.
I'll get started then. I'm really excited to talk to you all today about your online risks, and I hope you'll be able to get some really good tips from today's presentation. Am I at risk? Practical cybersecurity. First, a little bit about Cyber Wyoming. We're a nonprofit organization. We don't sell hardware, software, or technology implementation services. We have 3, sorry about that, my dog just walked in. We have 3 main focuses. Our programs include education and outreach, workforce development as a registered apprenticeship office for technology professions, and economic development or outreach to businesses like yours. We have a lot of organizations that support us in these efforts, like these amazing community-minded companies and organizations like the Wyoming Women's Business Center. So let's talk psychology a little bit. To increase their chances, attackers have to make their stories believable. And the best approach is to look for information about you, their target. To learn everything about you, from where you live, to what car you drive, or who you work for, or who your family is, your life, your interests, your hobbies, all to make a phishing email so attractive that you can't help but click or respond. And the best place that they start looking for this information is where we willingly share it online. And it's like striking gold to hackers, so it's social media. This leads us to social engineering, which is how they get into our heads. They find your email or name somewhere online, and they do a little bit of research. So we're going to go through how they do this And all we did was put more.brenda@gmail.com into a Google search, and here's what we found. Brenda is into humanitarian causes with the Charter for Change organization. Brenda has her own nonprofit, the Kids Educational Engagement Project, and owns a restaurant called J&A's Delicacies. We now know where she works. We note here that we have her full name, and we know what her writing style is like based on her posts on Facebook. Here we have her work email address, her work phone number, and we know that she's part of her Chamber of Commerce. And by the way, just for fun, did anybody see that her specialty is snail snacks? Healthily spiced snail snacks. Now, I just think that was interesting. We also have her nonprofit email address, her nonprofit address, and her phone. And we know that she works with an organization in the United States. So if we wanted to get into Brenda's headspace, we would create a phishing email based on her passion for children's education and advocacy, saying we were from Charter for Change, the Akosha Fellows, or a donor from her nonprofit, or we could pose as a donor for her nonprofit, the Kids Educational and Engagement Project. We could also say that we saw her article in Africa Online and we were impressed with what she had to say. Or we could order food from J&A's Delicacies and try to fish her for a scam. Or it would be pretty easy to fish her with a deal on snails as a vendor. So this kind of brings us to, have you Googled yourself lately? What we found out about Brenda took us about 20 minutes of research. And if with a little more effort, we could have gotten even more information. So this should be making you just a little bit paranoid on have you Googled yourself and what information is out there about you. Once the hackers research you, they use a psychological playbook to craft the email, text, or phone call specifically for your needs to try to get you to click. And here's what their playbook says. First, they talk about reciprocity. So they use a technique called reciprocity. So there's a study that this man, Dr. Eric Huffman, one of his friends did, and his friends randomly sent out 500 Christmas cards to people he didn't know. And he got almost all 500 Christmas cards back for years from complete strangers. Now, think about reciprocity for a car wrap scam, for instance. They say, if you buy this magnet to put on your car door to advertise for us, then we will pay you $300 a month. So that is an example of reciprocity. The next one is commitment and consistency. Dr. Huffman fished 35 organizations across the nation with their permission and was able to get everyone he fished to click within 32 days. So persistence pays off for hackers. We have a few different reoccurring scams in Wyoming. One is from Sir Edward, who wants you to help him with a $92 million business opportunity. Another is from imposters claiming to be from the Social Security Administration, telling you that your Social Security number is being used fraudulently in Texas. And the third is from newsletter@techandtech.com with a barrage of very real-looking offers and ads. So consistency of purpose here is the hacker's friend. Social proof. This is where the social engineering comes in. The hackers research you and they concoct a story or a half story, like me suggesting that creating a snail offer or a good deal on snails for Brenda Moore's restaurant. One of the scams that is very common nationwide is a funeral scam. They find out on social media that someone has passed away, and then they look up the obituary and contact a member of the grieving family. I've heard of a scam where a grandparent was called by the police, and that's in quotes, not really the police, saying that her grandson had been in an accident on the way back from the funeral. Because of the obituary, the hacker knew where the funeral was and where the grandson was from, and that he would probably be traveling. So they created that half story. Liking. Hackers try to make you like them, at least at first. If you like them, then you're more likely to trust them. There was a recent article about North Korean state actors who are hackers pretending to be security researchers to gain access to vulnerabilities that real security researchers had found. So the North Koreans claimed that they wanted to help and collaborate with the real security researchers, creating likability. The next one is authority. Hackers try to sound official because people respond to that. Dr. Huffman's study also showed that many people were more likely to click if the email supposedly came from the boss or the CEO. They were more afraid of not being responsive to the leader than they were to introduce a vulnerability into the company. So this implies that maybe we all need to think a little bit about how we accept authority. And the final one is scarcity. Often hackers try to find something you need or want, and unfortunately, we help them by posting what we need and want on social media. So for instance, if you post that you just lost your job due to COVID, then you may be targeted with a car wrap scam or a working from home scam. So before we get into the specific risk factors, I want you to think about building 3 habits as we talk about these risk factors. Self-reflection about your online behavior. What do you post and what can strangers find out about you? Number 2, how can I cultivate more suspicion when I'm online? And we'll give you some ideas today. And number 3, how can I create a habit to take an extra second and think about the information I'm posting online, as well as that extra second to responding to a request in an email or a text? So here are the risk factors for your self-reflection exercise today. The number 1 risk factor for clicking when you shouldn't is impulsiveness. So if you consistently go for that candy bar, magazine, or pack of gum in the checkout line at the grocery store, then you may be a little impulsive. This can translate into problems for clicking when you shouldn't. So the solution here is to slow down, read every email with a bad Russian accent, and make yourself more naturally suspicious. When you get an email, you automatically read it in your own voice. Who is more trustworthy than me, myself, or I? So if you read that email in a bad Russian accent, or any bad accent that is not your voice, it removes that trustworthy voice and activates your stranger danger just a little bit. So when you get an email from your mom, think about getting an email from a family member. You're reading it in their voice, and she's also trustworthy. So even if it's someone you know, read that email in a bad accent. Can you believe that the hackers even know when to contact us? If you pride yourself in being productive, then you need to be sure to slow down right before lunch and right before you leave for the day. This is when the scammers who use psychology know you're going to try to zip through your tasks as fast as possible, so they know that you're more vulnerable during these times. Another risk factor is if you live alone. Why? The scammers know that if you talk it out with someone, then you're more likely to figure out it's a scam. Scammers combat this by making the offer feel like an initiation or making you feel special or unique. Or they use negative emotions like, you're going to be in trouble, but I can help you. Prior knowledge of scams does help you reduce your susceptibility. So educating yourself and your coworkers really does work, but it needs to be targeted towards your needs at work. And this is why Cyber Wyoming has a free weekly Wyoming scam alert list that anyone can sign up to receive. It's called the Hacker's Brief. You're most likely to lose money if the scammer seems official. Remember how we talked earlier with Dr. Huffman's with authority. Seeming official is way out in front of these other scam tactics. While hackers might also use time pressures, trying to make you like them, say they're worried that you're going to miss out on an opportunity, know a lot about you from social media research, and may even use intimidation tactics, seeming official is the #1 reason people click and lose money. So if you feel uncomfortable at any time, stop and think, this could be a scam. Scammers bank on the fact that you don't have enough information to make good decisions. Remember the half stories they tell? So to combat this, you have to ask more questions. And let me tell you a story about a Wyoming citizen from Lovell. He got tired of getting those car warranty phone calls. So he pressed 1 to talk to a real person. And before they could say anything, he said, "What company are you calling from and what country are you calling from?" And they hung up on him. Now, experts say don't press a number when you get these kinds of calls because it could signal that the phone number is valid and open you up to more scam calls. But what this Lovell citizen did was ask questions, which intimidated the scammers and made them move on to lower hanging fruit. If you're a social media queen or king, I have bad news for you. You're more at risk and need to be extra careful. The top 2 methods that hackers will try to use to scam you are contacting you through social media because you've already shown you trust it, and faking a website that you're familiar with. So let's go over some other risk factors to see if you fit the mold. Sadly, millennials are more at risk. They've been raised in the digital age and are used to digital methods, and they trust them more. So if you're younger, you are more at risk. The more self-motivated you are, the more you can be hacked. This is because you tend to figure it out on your own. So again, there's that alone or didn't talk to anyone factor, and it's because you are a problem solver. If you're an extrovert, then the old saying goes, strangers are friends you haven't met yet. You routinely talk to strangers and enjoy it, but you have to remember that this is dangerous online. A lot of business owners are extroverts, so this is something you have to think about. Being agreeable is usually a good thing for a harmonious workplace, but if you're agreeable, then the hacker can also get you to comply, and they can make you click. If you're conscientious and want to do a good job or just make someone happy, the hackers play on that. You want to please those you work with, so you also want to please the believable hacker. And if you're emotionally stable, then you're more likely to engage with a hacker. By contrast, if you just went through a breakup and you're feeling bad, you'll be harder to engage. So emotional stability makes you available for interaction. And finally, are you open to new experiences? If so, then you're probably open to the hacker's new idea or half story as well. Cybersecurity is more closely related to psychology than it is to computer science, according to Dr. Eric Huffman. Because hackers use emotional trigger, you have to know your own emotional triggers, because they're not hacking computers, they're hacking us. So to summarize, here are the risk factors again. And I want to note that a lot of these traits are what make you successful at work. But to combat this, get on your acting skills, because online you need to become a slightly different, more suspicious person. And so the way to fight psychological ploys of hackers is to know yourself, know how the hackers play to your emotions, and train on this at work. And think before you post or click on anything. And if you're a manager, then the #1 reason employees click is because, quote, my boss scares me. So make sure you have the right leadership role with your employees. You may want to think a little bit about your management style and see if it opens up your company for security risks. So switching gears, if you liked hearing about the psychology of cybersecurity, consider another free program. We've covered hacking the human training. If you want to find out more about common sense solutions to small business cybersecurity, think about joining Wyoming Cybersecurity Competition for Small Businesses. Don't let the word competition intimidate you. The intent is to make it fun, but it's really just free one-on-one training. It focuses more on people, processes, and culture. In fact, the other day a business signed up and said, I don't want to compete. And I said, no problem, we'll just forget to send your judge's report. The program started on February 1st, but you can still sign up anytime. If you register soon, you're more likely to win and can work at the project at a more leisurely pace. Winners speak at Wyoming Cybersecurity Conference, but if this makes you nervous, we can pre-record and stream your video. This is an opportunity to be trained one-on-one on topics like this. And the best part, it's free. Our specialty is small businesses without IT help, and we focus on common sense solutions, people, processes, and culture. You don't have to be technical at all. There's a flyer with information in the handout section in the GoToMeeting panel. This year, we're also featuring working webinars. Kelly, a past participant, is going to be a peer mentor in the working webinars this year. She went from being a little nervous about cybersecurity to being very confident, and you can too. You don't have to be in the competition to come to the working webinars, but priority is given to those who enter. And the first one is, where does the internet service provider's responsibility end and my responsibility start? This includes 30 minutes of content, and the rest is working with a mentor to get something done to protect your business. Thank you for your time, and thanks again to the Wyoming Women's Business Center for inviting me here to speak today. At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions, Veronica, if any have come up.
Hi, Laura. I do not see any questions so far, so I'll invite our attendees to add any questions if they have them. But I just wanted to say I am so surprised that most of those attributes you talked about were actually positive. And I think I fit in a lot of them, so I'm going to have to spend some time and think about how I act online. Do you have any advice for me if I made all of my social media accounts private, except for any business pages I have, of course? Would that close off the information that a hacker could get?
It does decrease it quite a bit, which is great. But still Google yourself and see what else comes up. And also sign out all of your accounts and then make sure that the security settings that you set up on your social media accounts really are working the way you wanted them to. I actually was helping somebody the other day, and we were not friends on Facebook. And she said, oh, I've got all the security settings on my Facebook. And I went in and I said, ooh, I hate to tell you this, but I can see everything. And she said, oh, no. So it's just a really good idea to make sure that you sign out of everything and double check it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's hard for entrepreneurs because they have their personal account and a business account. And obviously you want your business to be as public as possible so people can find you and see you. But it makes more sense now that you should also care a lot about your personal account because that's how they social engineer you.
Right. And I do think it's interesting that almost all of those traits that make you more susceptible online are also what make you a good employee or a good business leader or a good manager. And so one of the things that I've really worked at is kind of putting my online face on, where it's almost like I slip into a separate suspicious persona when I'm online. And I'm a different person. Like a reporter called me a couple days ago, or not called me, emailed me a couple days ago, and I went out and I double checked who he was. I made sure that the phone number that he was listing was correct. I made sure that the email domain was correct. I went out on LinkedIn and just made sure that he really was who he said he was before I responded. And you know, that's kind of an important thing to do. But you wouldn't normally do that in your personal accounts, right?
Right.
So.
Wow. So we do have one question that came in, and she said, it seems like many people have a lot of information that's work related on LinkedIn. How can you make your LinkedIn account more private but still productive? And I'm guessing this is also referring to the LinkedIn Premium account where you can see a lot more information on people's profiles. Do you have any advice, Laura?
So I haven't looked at the LinkedIn settings in a while, but I think if she would like to talk to me about it offline, I'd be happy to go in and look at my old research from about a year ago and see if it's still valid, and then help her through it. You know, with LinkedIn, it's primarily professional contacts. And basically on LinkedIn, just be careful who you let into your professional network as well, because you get a lot of marketers and salespeople that you have no idea who they are, that want to be your LinkedIn professional contact. And I would say be discriminating there. And then the second thing is we can go through those security settings together and we can make sure that they're still accurate.
Okay, perfect.
And don't post anything personal on LinkedIn. I mean, it's been breached 3 or 4 times. So
yeah, that's very true. So it seems like the point of this webinar is to say, and it's kind of connected with the last webinar, that phishing is the #1 way that hackers get into your personal information or set up a scam. So if you are conscious about how you act online, you might be able to spot those phishing scams even more because you understand how they target you. Is that correct?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And then just really listen, you know, a lot of people, women growing up, have heard this growing up. Listen to your gut, listen to your gut, listen to your gut, you know, especially in safety situations. You know, maybe you're walking around a large city and you don't feel comfortable and you're not sure why, or you feel like somebody's watching you or whatever. We've always been told by advocates for women, listen to your gut. And what I want to say is activate that part online and make sure you listen to your gut there too.
That is good advice. I think, you know, there's just so much of life online, whether it's dating online or connecting with people professionally on LinkedIn. And, you know, there's just so much more room for connecting with someone you would never meet in real life. So always trust your gut, just like if you're going on a first date or a blind date, always trust your gut. We do have a comment in the questions. She said, I can see how managing my passwords and this information go together. Great series. Thank you so much to the listener who sent that one in. I don't see any more questions, so I think we should just go through our closing slides. And if anyone has a question and we don't get to it, we'll contact you off of the webinar. So I'll just
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it was great. Thanks for coming on. Okay. The Wyoming Women's Business Center is made possible through several partnership agencies, and our primary funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Wyoming Business Council. We are so thankful for their support and guidance, and we look forward to the work ahead. If you're interested in receiving one-on-one business counseling, you can contact our business counselor, Jonathan Howdeshell. His phone and email are on the left side of the screen. And if you're interested in our COVID-19 support program resources, my contact information is on the right side of your screen. And of course, if you're just interested in reading about all of our services, you can go to wyomingwomen.org and sign up from there. And if you enjoyed this webinar, we have a third part of our Practical Cybersecurity for Your Business series, and that will be next Tuesday at noon. And we have another webinar next week, which is Building Customer Relationships Online. Of course, you can sign up and register for those webinars by going to our website and clicking on the training page to register for free. And you'll also be able to see videos from our past webinars. Thank you so much for attending, and thanks to Laura for coming on and sharing her expertise. If you can, please stay a couple extra minutes to complete the survey at the end of this webinar, but I hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.